All right, today we want to begin talking about functions involving square roots. This is the beginning of chapter 12. We will see where we get to in this chapter. We'll kind of bounce around a little bit, just kind of help make sure you guys are ready for geometry next year. And hopefully this chapter will help you a little bit with that. First thing we want to talk about is what a square root function is. We talked about square root functions in we talked about square roots in chapter 9, and so we can go ahead and skip talking about what square roots are. But a square root function is defined by the equation y is equal to the square root of x. And you guys all should already know, or maybe you remember from the beginning of chapter, or the end of chapter 9 here, that when you're taking the square root, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So in this case, your x and your y values are non-negative. So we can take the square root of 0. We can take the square root of positive numbers. As long as they are not negative numbers, we can take the square root of them. Since we are not putting the square root into our equation here, the square root is already there. We can take those square root signs to be all positive. What we're going to do with these is we're going to sketch some graphs. When graphing, you can never go wrong starting with the good old XY chart. So we get those in there. And since we're going to pick non-negative numbers, we're going to start at 0, see what happens there. 0 is non-negative. It's not positive, but it's not negative either. We'll check 1. You can check 2 and 3 if you want to. They're not going to come out to be nice, pretty numbers that you can graph easily on here. But you'll get some decimal numbers here, and we'll take a look at those. And then I want to check 4 and 9. I pick 4 and 9 because they're perfect squares. So when I take the square root of them, then I can go ahead and get that. So if I plug in 0 into my equation, we get 2 times the square root of 0. Square root of 0 is 0 times 2 gives me another 0. So I have the point 0, 0 on my graph. If I plug in 1, you're going to take 2 times the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is 1, so we're going to get 2. So at 1, we have a y value of 2 right there. At 2, you get 2 times the square root of 2, which square root of 2 is not a nice, pretty number. It's approximately 1.2. So we multiply that by 2, we get approximately 2.4. So that's just under half here. We make our best guess. And the same thing with, oh, that should be closer to 2.8. Closer to there. We take the square root of 3, multiply it by 2. You can do all this on your calculator here. So you get 3.5 roughly. Put our point there. We get 4. Square root of 4 is 2 times 2 is going to be 4. And square root of 9 is 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. So I can plot that. 4, 4 there. And 9, I got to go up 6. So that point is going to end up right there. And from there, we're going to connect our connect our points. And notice that this is going to, again, be a curve. It's not going to be a straight line. But that's what all of these graphs should look like somewhat. They've got that curve. And notice that I don't put an arrow at the point that going through 0, 0. We can only work with positive points there. Really, the main ones that I want you to check and see what happens here. 0, 1, 4, and 9. Now, the reason I want you to look at those is because they turn out to be perfect squares when you look at those. They make it just a little easier for you to work with. So look to make those, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in a second. So if we look at the square root of x plus 1, that is going to, again, be a square root function, and we need our xy chart. So perfect squares. What numbers can be perfect squares? 0, 1. You can check 2 and 3 if you want, and I'll put those up there for you. But again, 4 is a perfect square, and 9 is a perfect square. So let's check those. So take square root of 0 and add 1. You're going to get 1. Square root of 1 plus 1 is going to give me 2. 2 is going to give me 2.4. 3 is going to give me 2.7. 4 will leave me with 3, and 9 will give it a value of 4. So now we are going to plot those points. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2.4, so we're just below half. 3, 2.7, we are just above half there. And 4, 3, and to get up to 4, we got to go all the way out to 9. So we'll have a point up there. Again, connect our dots, arrow only on the right side. So same process. Really, if you look at this 1 here, all it did was move that square root function up 1. So that's one way you can kind of check yourself. I'm not going to specifically ask you what does it do, but just so you're aware, that's what that plus 1 at the end of that is going to do. Last example for you today, square root of x minus 3. Now, notice that the 3 is inside the square root today. So we're still going to do our xy chart. But now, if I plug in 0 for my x, I'm going to get the square root of 0 minus 3. This is a negative number. So this is going to give us an error if you put it into your calculator or anything like that. We can't take the square root of those negative numbers. So the first number that I can start with is 3, because I will get the square root of 3 minus 3. Or the square root of 0. So what that means is that an x value of 3, my y value is 0. And now let's check some other ones. 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I take the square root of 4 minus 3, which is going to be 1. Square root of 5 minus 3 is approximately 1.4. So I go out to 5, and just below half, 6 will give me the square root of 6 minus 3, which is approximately 1.7. So I'm just above half there. And if I plug in 7, I get the square root of 7 minus 3, which is exactly 2, the square root of 4. And I put my point there. Now I could keep going if I wanted to, but in order for me to get to another perfect square, I would have to plug in 12 and take the square root of 12 minus 3 to get 3. 12 isn't on my graph here. I only have a 10 by 10 grid, so I will just stop at 7 and go ahead and connect your dots there. Again, arrow on the right. Since I've got this -3 inside the square root, is going to shift my graph from 0, 0. It's going to go to the right 3. Again, one of those things just to kind of help you double check yourself. I will not test you specifically on how does this graph move. And I just want you to be aware, something to just kind of help you out a little bit. Here's the homework for this chapter, or for this section, I guess, not for the entire chapter. We'll check this when I get back. If you guys have questions, feel free to email me. I will try my best to answer those as quickly as I can. If not, there it is. This is also posted on my website, and I will make sure that it's posted in the back of the classroom while I'm gone. So let me know if you guys have questions. Other than that, thank you for watching.